Welcome to Maximising Efficiency with Dext. We are just about to head into the festive period and we need to be a little bit tighter on the world of spending. We may have some of our staff who are trying to buy Christmas presents through the business or whatever that may be. Dext Approvals streamlines invoice sign-off so businesses can save time, reduce errors, and stay on top of their bookkeeping and cash flow in a matter of seconds. So Approvals was released this year. It's been a great hit, but it has since come a little bit of a way. That includes having the ability to have us, the accountants and bookkeepers, within the approval workflow. So I'm going to show you that along with some of the other changes to our approvals that we have developed throughout the year. So you can see what we can do now for approvals for cost items, expense claims, and sales items too. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so here we are within Dext. And like I mentioned, we have now given you the ability as the accountant or bookkeeper to have yourself within an approval flow that your client has set up. Okay, so here we are from our client dashboard. I'm gonna go ahead and search for my demo client here, Exact Accounting. If I head over to that, what you'll see on the right-hand side is the ability for me to manage this client. I can go into here and click Practice Access within here. And this is where I go to allocate which clients have access to view this client, okay? What I can see within here is all of my team members, all of my bookkeeping and accounting colleagues within here. And let's search for me within here. What we've got here is me, Max Whiteley, and I'm going to give myself approval permissions within this client. Okay, so not only now do I have access to this client, but I now have approval permissions within this client. Okay, heading into the approval workflows within this client, what I need to do is go back, jump into my business settings, and you'll see there on the left-hand side, approvals. Okay, here is where we go ahead and set up our approval workflows, and one has already been set up for us right about here. So what approvals is in the world of Dext is a bit like what you'd imagine from like a zero bank rule, a QuickBooks bank rule. We give it a form of criteria to look for, and then we tell it what approval flow to look for. So this is a cost approval workflow, and we'll use this as an example to show you how it works. So first of all, we get to call our approval whatever we want. This one is our travel approval workflow. We can have the description in there if we like. Then we go on to the criteria selection process. So we want this approval workflow to happen every time it sees a document with the following details. Here we've kept it very broad, but you can be as specific or broad as you like to whatever suits your business, okay? This one here just says, anytime you see the supplier UK Railways, we want to set up this workflow. So we don't want to be able to publish it directly into our purchase ledger in our accounting software, but instead has to go through this approval workflow. And then down here is what does that approval workflow look like? Okay. First of all, this can be up to 5 stages long. It could just be one approver, 2, and you can really have a lot of flexibility around this. Okay. So the first stage of this approval workflow is the approver type is a specific user. So let's say, for example, you've got head of travel in this situation being Paul. So you say every time you see something that relates to the supplier UK Railways, I want Paul to approve it always, no matter what the value is or what the criteria is, okay? Then we can escalate it if we would like and say, right, okay, Paul doesn't have full authority. So what we need to do is we need to escalate that if the value is, really large. So again, specific user, I also want John Smith to approve it when the value is greater than £1,000, okay? So that means then, for me, Max, the bookkeeper, I do my bookkeeping and think, yep, that's okay. I send it for approval. It'll then get passed to Paul. Paul will then approve it. And if it's above £1,000, it will need John to approve it before it's allowed to be published into your accounting records within there. We've also recently added the ability to edit the approval workflow. So by default, this will be set to no. So when I've done the bookkeeping, if Paul says, yeah, we're happy with that, we then have the option to give John the ability to be able to edit some of the fields within that document. This is set to default by no because obviously John will be sending something or approving something that Paul hasn't really approved because it's changed in that last process within there. But it's just to give you flexibility if you do have quirks within your business and your approval workflow within there. Then at the bottom, we have our settings to switch the approval workflow on, so whether it's active or not active. We have auto publish once approved, which means when John has done the final approval, it then gets pushed into our accounting software. If that's turned off, what would happen? It would come back to me, Max, the bookkeeper, and say, everyone has approved it. You can now publish it into your accounting records within there. And then we also have the ability to allow self-approval. So do we want the people to be able to go in and approve their own documents? Obviously, Usually that's set to no, but for this example, I'm just going to keep it as yes so I can show you the full workflow and throughout that process. So this is a cost approval workflow. And like I mentioned, you do have the ability to set this up for sales and expense claims. One thing that is worth mentioning when you are doing the expense claims one is this approver type here. Often you would use the manager in the world of employee expense claims. So depending on who is doing the bookkeeping, that will get sent to their manager. And the way you can set that up is if you go back into our user details. So just jumping into users, looking at me here, Max the client, let's have a look. Edit user details. You'll see the ability for me to set myself up with a manager so that when the approval flow sees that it's me doing the bookkeeping and it's set to manager must approve, then it will get sent to my manager in particular. Okay. Jumping back into the costing box here, and I'm going to go back into my client. We'll have some cost items, and what you'll see on the right-hand side is they all say publish, okay? Apart from one, which says request approval. This is because this has hit the criteria and says, this is UK Railways, we need this to be approved before we publish it into our accounting records, okay? I can say, yeah, request approval. And then if I jump back into here, what you'll see is in my costing box, the approver, what they would see within this box, because this approval will be assigned to them, is that they would have a document there to approve. And here you'll see it is here, UK Railways invoice to approve. I can click into this, review it, everything's okay. If I had the ability to edit, it would let me edit certain criteria. I can then approve it with a comment or reject it. So I can say, no, stop using first class. And throughout our settings as well, you have the ability to set up notifications around approvals as well, and also have a lot of customization within there. But if you do want a bit more structure around your bill approvals, this is a great way to go about it. All of our audit trail is kept within the document as well, within the history section, and that is also pulled into the history notes within your Xero transaction, if you are using Xero within there. So great functionality. I know when I was in practice, I used multiple tools, Dext, which would link to an approval tool. Now you can do everything all under one roof. So, Dext isn't just for data extraction. It is that complete bookkeeping automation tool, and make sure you are getting the most out of that and maximizing your efficiency. Cheers.